Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, where you learn how to extract your business and personal deep wealth. I'm your host, Jeffrey Feldberg. This podcast is brought to you by Deep Wealth and the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience. When it comes to your business deep wealth, your exit or liquidity event is the most important financial decision of your life. But unfortunately, up to 90% of liquidity events fail. Think about all that time and your hard-earned money wasted. Of the quote-unquote successful liquidity events, most business owners leave 50% to over 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket and don't even know it. I should know. I said no to a 7-figure offer and yes to mastering the art and the science of a liquidity event. 2 years later, I said yes to a different buyer with a 9-figure deal. Are you thinking about an exit or liquidity event? Don't become a statistic and make the fatal mistake of believing the skills that built your business are the same ones to sell it. After all, how can you master something you've never done before? Let the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience and the 9-step roadmap of preparation help you capture the best deal instead of any deal. At the end of this episode, take a moment and hear from business owners like you who went through the Deep Wealth Experience. Kevin Palmeiri is the CFO, founder, and co-host of Next Level University, a global top 100 self-improvement podcast with over 1,000 episodes and 600,000 plus listens in over 125 countries. Some people find rock bottom. Kevin found out that rock bottom has a basement. In his mid-20s, Kevin had it all. He had a beautiful girlfriend, a high-paying job, a sports car, dream body, but he ended up sitting on the edge of a bed debating suicide. After hitting the rock bottom moment, Kevin went all in on holistic self-improvement. Kevin was determined to overcome his anxiety and depression and finally live the life he always dreamed of. Kevin now hosts a podcast that is a multi-six-figure business, impacts hundreds of thousands of people in countries worldwide, and has recorded over 1,000 episodes. Kevin has given hundreds of speeches, training, and coaching calls to people worldwide. By focusing on learning what he didn't know and unlearning many things at the same time, Kevin's life started to shift. Consistency, commitment, habits, mindset, confidence, fear, relationships, limiting beliefs, and everything in between are front and center for Kevin. Kevin believes in a heart-driven but no BS approach to holistic self-improvement and looks forward to teaching people what it takes to get to the next level. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, and wow, do we have a guest lined up for you, a podcaster of podcasters, a podcast extraordinaire, an incredible story individual who has been to the brink and back. And come on, let's face it, as business owners, there are times where, we just get there. How do we give ourselves that little nudge to take it to the next level? I promise you, you're going to come out today feeling a whole lot better than coming in. So that said, I'm going to stop it there, Kevin. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. And Kevin, you know what? There's always a story behind the story. What's your story? What got you to where you are today?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for the wonderful introduction and kind words. I always start simply with this, Jeffrey. I started just like everybody else. I started from a place of not knowing what I wanted to do, not knowing who I wanted to be. So I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. Shout out to Mom and Mima, as we call her. Mima.
Nice.
I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. So obviously, as a young man, that has potential positives and potential negatives. So for context, I think it's good to throw it out there. But other than that, I knew at a pretty young age that I didn't want to do the same thing that a lot of my friends were doing. So while everybody else was applying to college, getting ready to go to college, I decided I am not going to go to college. That's not for me. I did a bunch of odd jobs, cleaning toilets at a bathroom, gas station attendant, many different things. Eventually, I got a very unique opportunity in an industry called weatherization. So we would go into state-owned buildings and we would make them more energy efficient. That was my job. Since we worked for the state, I got anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour. As a 25-year-old man with no college degree, that's pretty darn good, right? So if you looked at me from the outside, you would see a young man who had a high-paying job. My girlfriend at the time was a model.
Mm-hmm.
I had the body of my dreams because I just won a bodybuilding show,
Hmm.
sports car, new apartment, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you checked in with me 2 years later, I
Mm-hmm.
was on the edge of the bed in a hotel room debating
Mm-hmm.
suicide.
Wow.
So it looked like externally I had all the unique measures of success. Internally, I was insecure. I was afraid of my own shadow. I was depressed. I was
Mm-hmm.
anxious. It looked like I had quote unquote success, but
Uh-huh.
I never really defined what success looked like to me until I felt that extreme amount of pain and that extreme amount of necessity. That was kind of the kick in the butt for me to say, hey, it's time to figure out what do we really want to do here?
And so, Kevin, from the outside looking in, you're right. You had all the trappings of what people would call success. But what was missing for you when all was said and done?
Yeah. So I preface it with this. I think that my internal state
Mm-hmm.
and my external state were
Mm-hmm.
just too far apart. Internally, I felt like $1,000 house. Externally, it might have looked like I was $1 million mansion. And I think that plays tricks on our psyche when that happens. So that's part one. I think part two is I was designing for a life of happiness, not for a life of fulfillment. And happiness is very results driven and it's very fleeting. If this interview goes well and you like me, I will feel happy. Regardless of how this interview goes, I am fulfilled because I am in the process of doing what I believe I should be doing to become the best version of me. And I had a life that was optimized for happiness. That was the biggest thing. Now, it's interesting, right? So I've been podcasting since 2017. When I left my job and went from making 6 figures to 0 figures, I was far less successful. I definitely had less quote unquote happiness in my life, but I was far more fulfilled and life got better from there. So for me, that's the unique measure that I didn't have that I now do. And I understand for me, that's what I've always been chasing.
Yeah, Kevin, right out of one of my own personal playbooks, which says something along the lines of this: all the zeros in the bank account, all the accolades, all the success in the world mean nothing. In fact, it's a failure if you lack fulfillment. And hearing your story of what you went through, it almost sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if I said the term imposter syndrome, was that something kind of racing through your mind and what you were feeling back in the day?
I still have that. I always do research before I go on a show. I researched this and I was like, interesting. We interviewed Coach Michael Burt. I saw Coach Michael Burt. I saw a lot of guests that I know. And it was like, do I belong? Right? I still have that 1,270 episodes into my podcast. And yeah, I still have that. So I think it was more back then because I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I didn't have a lot of extrinsic value. And I think I wanted to use external results to bridge that gap. Now I think it's because every time I get comfortable with what I'm doing, there's a new opportunity that's presented and I try to approach that opportunity. And I think that's where imposter syndrome comes, where you're afraid that people are going to find out your biggest thing that you're afraid people are going to find out. I think that's really what imposter syndrome is. So I still have that. Yeah. Transparently.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kevin, just to share and both of us being vulnerable for the whole world to listen to here. I'm coming into this podcast thinking, my God, this guy's done a gazillion podcasts. Hopefully he'll teach me a thing or two along the way here. And, hearing how you're feeling coming in, it's, life's interesting. I would love your thoughts on this. And then I want to talk about what you're doing with Next Level University and how you're changing lives and paying it forward from where you were back in the day. And we fast forward to today with social media and just the change of pace and how we're now really getting that social programming of looking at people and seeing what looks like the perfect life, the perfect vacation, the perfect everything. And it's just one picture out of thousands of pictures, which is nothing like reality. Do you sense a change in what's been taking place from our mindset and how we're being programmed to think? And what are you seeing with that?
100%. Yeah. The interesting thing is most people don't ever have the opportunity to go behind the curtain of social media. So we were interviewed one time, my business partner and I, we used to do interviews together until we realized that's probably not the best use of our time. So we ended up splitting that up. But we were interviewed by a model who is just unbelievably gorgeous. On her social media, you would think this person has a 10 out of 10 confidence level. Like nothing could possibly shake this person.
Right.
And she didn't want to use video that day because she didn't feel like she looked good enough. And that was just such an interesting dichotomy for me of you're a model and your social media is basically how pretty you are. But in this moment, that's not up to the standard that you want to show. That is way more common I've worked with professional cheerleaders who have literally been in the NFL on the NFL teams, and they have the same thing where they don't necessarily feel good enough in certain situations. So I speak to that just from the understanding that social media is a highlight. It is polished. It is chosen with high levels of intentionality. And usually it tells 1% of 100% story. So until you can disconnect, and here's why it's so important. I think social media is a good representation of momentary happiness. I don't think you can recognize fulfillment in a picture on social media, right? I don't know that you can really, unless you're fulfilled and you can say, I can tell by the look in that person's eyes that they really love what they're doing, but that's another level of consciousness.
And Kevin, we're going to get into Next Level University, but before we do, for every episode, wherever possible, I love to have the listener walk away with something that they can do today, something actionable that can make a difference. I mean, some of the topics we've been talking about, that could be, forget an episode, that can be an entire series. We've talked about imposter syndrome. We've talked about social media and social programming. Given where you've been, where you are, and where you're heading, when it comes to mindset, because mindset is so often undervalued by just the general public or what you're hearing out there. But for me, mindset is the art side of business. That's where the magic happens, not in a spreadsheet, not in a formula, not in something complicated. It's the art side, which sometimes it's intangible. It's hard to even put words around. So from the art side of things, from a mindset perspective, what would be something today, walking out of this episode, that's really worked well for you, for the people that you've coached, for people going through Next Level University? What would be a strategy or a tip for our listeners?
Yeah, start internally with yourself. I know a lot of us as business owners, we want to go crush it and track the data and make money and make impact and add value and change people's lives. But at the end of the day, so much of what we do and what we don't do is inside of us. And for many of us, it's unconscious. We are unconsciously showing up and unintentionally doing things in certain ways. So what has really benefited me is trying to make sure I learn as much about myself than anything else, because I am the only thing that I will take with me for the rest of my life. I am the only thing that's going to show up on this interview. That, like, your self-improvement set point is going to determine so much. So make sure you're reflecting on your past. Make sure you're sitting with your insecurities. Make sure you're admitting what you're really good at, what you're not good at. If you have an ego flare with somebody, question, why is that? Why was I unkind? Why do I feel super confident? Why do I not? Just levels of why. Asking yourself why is a very powerful behavior.
I love that. And Kevin, let me ask you this, because you have the experience and you really cut across a wide swath of people in all different stations of life throughout your career and growing up and what you've done. So for the type A personalities, which are a lot of the listeners, and I'll put myself in that camp as well, and perhaps you as well, we're very similar that way. And it's easy as a type A personality to really say, you know what, okay, I'm just going to come out, I'm going to be invincible, I'm going to show everyone why I'm the best of the best. But it's actually the wrong thing to do. And people want to see that, hey, you have some flaws, you have some kryptonite that can bring you to your knees. Why do you think that is? And why is it important for us to open up, as hard as that might be? And people may say, well, being vulnerable is being weak. We're actually got to be strong to be vulnerable. But why is that the case, that the likability factor shoots through the roof when we can open up and show our vulnerability?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, now more than ever, we buy more into people than we do anything else. And if you really want to impact somebody, if you really want to influence somebody, if you really want to shift somebody's purchasing decisions, anything really, they have to resonate with who you are as a human being. We're well beyond you should be perfect and make no mistakes and always show up perfect. We're way beyond that, where now I believe if human beings resonate with you, you will be far more successful. It's no longer follow the leader because you're supposed to. It's follow the leader because the leader makes you feel safe. They make you feel empowered. And more than anything, I think they make you feel like you can be imperfect because they show their imperfections. That it creates a culture of this is real life and we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. I'll cry on a team call because if I'm going through it, I'm going through it. That's the way it is that day. So I think it creates a culture, not only in the brand and the business, but on the team behind the scenes. And those are the people who see you at the high moments and the low moments.
Well, that's terrific of you. Really, you're being the change that you want to be. And as you're talking, I'm reminiscent of that saying, whoever said that business isn't personal was never in business, because business is completely personal. So let's change things up here and talk to us about Next Level University. And I loved your tagline, level up your life, love, health, and wealth. You just knocked off all the key areas of life. So how did it start and what's going on with Next Level University?
Yeah, I was in 2017, I was actually interviewed on a YouTube show. And at the end, I said, imagine if you could do that for a living. That was my thought process in the time. I ended up having a successful year at work and realizing this isn't it. There has to be more to life. And it all happened in a very synchronistic time. I ordered all the equipment to figure out how to start a podcast. And I started a podcast, and it was called the Hyperconscious Podcast. So when I talk about awareness, I was obsessed with becoming more aware of everything, life, myself, my relationships. So that's where it started. And that was in 2017. Eventually, I ended up leaving my job, partnering with who was one of my best friends at the time. And we said, all right, we have to turn this into a business at some point. So that's when we said, all right, what are we going to do to make money? So we started coaching, right? And that turned into a bunch of one-on-one coaching clients, and it's grown from there. So at the end of the day, Next Level University is a podcast that does 7 episodes a week. And one of our other mottos is self-improvement in your pocket every single day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. If we're going to suggest you get better every day, I'd like to be the person who's there helping you get better every day.
What a commitment. And for our listeners to put this in perspective, there's a lot of podcasters that struggle with 1 episode a week or maybe 2 a month. Here, you're knocking off every single day, 7 days a week, all throughout the year. So, wow, Kevin, that's quite the commitment. What got you there?
Yeah, it's interesting. We started with 1, and then that was like, all right, eventually that got easy. And then we were like, all right, let's do 2. And then one of our mentors, Evan Carmichael, he challenged us and said, you guys are way too good to not be doing more episodes. And we were like, interesting. Somebody way ahead of us believes in us. Okay. So we ended up doing 3 episodes a week after that. Somebody else challenged us, another guest we had. So I think we went to 4, then 5. And then when we were at 5, we're like, look, we might as well just do 7. There's 7 days in the week, so we might as well do it. But the other thing, though, the interesting thing, and I think this is important, is as our systems improved, it was far easier for us to put out more content, right? Because now we have a team that is in charge of content. So that was impactful. But at the end of the day, our main thing is impact. I think of it from a place of, mastery, impact, profitability. Mastery. I'm mastering how to podcast 7 days a week. Plus I go on 10 to 15 shows a week. So that's a lot of episodes, right? Impact comes from that. Ultimately, eventually, the result of that will be profitability that can go back into the business. But I want to go mastery, impact, profitability. I think that's the best way to do it.
That's terrific. And while you're doing all that behind the scenes, you're paying it forward, making a difference, being that change maker. And that's really where the magic happens and where things are at. So congratulations with that.
Thank you.
And so, Kevin, I'm curious, with Next Level University, you're doing your coaching, you're really interacting with who knows how many people, a lot of people, and successful people, and people getting to success and people turning their lives around. Is there an 80-20 Pareto's lie? Do you see that in effect here, where 80% of the problems, the issues that people, they're kept up at nights, they're causing them heartache, are coming from 20% of the same few issues again and again? Are there any patterns like that, and anything that you can share with us?
I have really seen 3 things stop people from whatever their level of success is. It's false expectations.
Okay.
It's a misaligned approach or a skewed time perspective.
Okay.
And I work more now with podcasters, businesses and brands with their podcast than anything. And here's the interesting thing. When you start talking with somebody, they will tell you their expectations. And you would say the same thing, Jeffrey. You can tell when somebody tells you their expectations if they're going to succeed or not. Like, you want a $100 million business this year. I don't think that's going to happen. That's probably not super realistic. That expectation determines the approach, right? I'm going to sink all my money into this year 1 and we're going to crush it. Maybe not. And then the third thing is the time perspective. So I think of it this way. If you call me up tomorrow and say, hey, we're going to go on a run, I'm going to ask you one question. How far is this run? How long are we running for? Because that changes my expectations, which changes my approach, which helps me understand the unique set of the time perspective. Those 3 I've seen hold so many people back, because if you have the wrong expectations, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, really. So those are the big three.
And so let's reverse engineer that. You're kind enough to share, hey, if you're doing these three things wrong, here's what likely the outcome is going to be. So now let's reverse engineer that, and quick thought experiment. We're going to be taking on an important initiative, perhaps a big initiative, something that could be really a game changer. It'll move the dial for us personally, for the business. How should we approach that, Kevin? What does that look like?
Yeah, I like to say, look at the ceiling and the floor. So in terms of expectations, I think many of us look at the ceiling. So podcaster, people look at Joe Rogan. It's like, well, he's got, $100 million with Spotify. That is a statistical anomaly that most likely will never happen again in a subset of subsets. So if you look at the ceiling, okay, Joe Rogan, what's the floor? The floor is there's been 3 million podcasts started, but right now there's only 225,000 in production. So most people fail within the first month. That's the floor. You might actually be more successful than you think. Interesting. Okay, so that's expectations. The approach might be, okay, let's say this. I was told when I started X that X was a great way to get more results with less work. Interesting. Who told you that? This person. Okay. I think they're misleading you when in reality, your approach should be, I need to put in way more work in the beginning. And then eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to maybe take my foot off the gas because I'll have enough momentum and we'll be into exponential land by then. And then the time perspective thing is, I don't know, I think a lot of people are looking at the anomalies and they're saying, again, that the Joe Rogan's the good example, but there's so much that goes into growth that I don't think people really give credit to. Again, just podcasting as an example. If you do one episode a week for a year, that's only 52 reps. Imagine going to the gym 52 times and expecting to have the most successful, powerful body of all time. It's most likely not going to happen, right? So that unique time perspective of 52 reps is not that many depending on what you're doing. 52 coaching calls, that's not a lot. 52 movies, that is a lot. So contextually understanding that time perspective and saying, okay, in my unique case, in my industry, based on where I am, what is a long-term perspective and what's a very short one?
Yeah, some great insights there. And let me ask you this. So podcasting and social media, from a business perspective, from a brand building perspective, it's something that you're focusing on now. So for the business owners that are out there that are thinking, yeah, you know what, I've thought about this, maybe I could be doing some kind of a podcast or on one of the social media channels, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say most people aren't creating enough content. You'll hear Gary Vee, the content king, talk about that all the time. So a podcast is a great way for you to do two things. One, connect directly with your audience. Three things, really. Number two, network, if you so choose, with people who might end up being clients or investors or whatever it is. Three, it helps position you as an expert in your field because this is what you do in an ideal world. You sit down, you get yourself a nice studio set up like Jeffrey has. You record audio and video. Audio goes to all the podcast platforms. Video goes to YouTube. And then you have yourself or your team cut the video up into segments of you adding value. This is how I tell people. I want your podcast to be you solving one unique problem in one unique way for one unique person. And that's your brand. And your podcast is part of the brand. The social media is the part of the brand. So you're allowing yourself to add free value in various pieces, various levels of your business, where ultimately, if it works the way it should, somebody finds you on social media and says, this Jeffrey guy is really either A, having great guests, or when I see the content, it's valuable. Let me check out this podcast. Interesting. I didn't know Jeffrey also had whatever below that is, the Facebook group or whatever it is. Ultimately, if you add enough aligned value to your audience, they end up becoming a customer or a client if they're supposed to. So it's a very good way to build the know, like, trust, but also influence and impact from a place of value. You're not asking for anything, you're giving a lot.
And I'm wondering, Kevin, you've been at this for a while. Coming out of the pandemic, my sense anyways, and you can tell me if I'm on base or off base with this, is people's expectations have changed. It's when doing business, it's no longer a logo. I want to know the person behind the logo. I want to get personal with them and know what they're all about, what their values are, what the culture of the company is, all those kinds of things. Are you seeing more of that? Has that become more predominant out there on the business side?
Yeah, I think people now are more conscious and hyper conscious of where their dollars are going. They don't want their dollars to go to something that is perceived the opposite of their character, right? So you'll see Tiger Woods, however many years ago, right? Tiger Woods was the face of a brand, did something that many people didn't resonate with. They pulled away. He lost a lot of sponsorships. I'm sure his revenue went down. It's because we now associate the leader of the business as the character of the business. And the character of the business, oftentimes the character of the brand, determines whether or not we're willing to invest. So 100%, I think everybody is personal brand. It's just whether or not you choose to leverage it that way.
And so, Gavin, for a listener out there who's saying, okay, you know what? Yeah, I know we should be on social media. We should even have a podcast. You're helping people with that. You're helping business owners with that. You have your podcast growth university going on. So I show up. I'm now enrolled in the university, led by you and the team. What's going on there? What am I learning? How are you teaching me?
Yeah. So Podcast Growth U is a free podcast too. So I have another podcast about podcasting if you want that. But the way we have it set up is for most of our clients, they are busy entrepreneurs, CEOs, or brands. So we say, all right, cool. This is what we're going to do. Every other week, you and I are going to hop on a call. We're going to do a Zoom call for an hour, and we're going to talk about where are the sticking points, what should we be doing? Let's look at the data. Let's talk about social media. Let's talk about the funnel. Let's talk about everything. So we're hyper-focused on that. And then our amazing team is going to do all of your audio editing, all your video editing, creating your social media content, posting your episodes everywhere. So you can be the business owner and you can be the brand builder and you can do the other things that are important for the business while we take care of the content. That really is our main focus, is how do we save you as much time as possible so you can go do the other big rocks when it comes to your business.
And for our listeners, I hope you can appreciate this, because what Kevin is talking about, this is not some theory. This is not something in the classroom. He's been there. He's done that. He's in the trenches. This is not somebody saying statistics say this and theory says that. He's taking what he's learned the hard way. He's got the PhD from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yes.
And you're the benefactor of that with Kevin and his team, to take whatever social media outlet you're going to be using, to take that and really, with your magic wand, Kevin, you and the team, getting that out there in a time-saving way so that business owners can grow their brand, get new customers, get the word out there, and really build that better mousetrap, so to speak.
Yeah. And it's the awareness piece too of like, that's one of the interesting things is I'll literally turn clients away when they come and say, yeah, I want to have 1 million downloads this year. It's not going to happen. I need to, going back to those 3 points, I need to make sure you have realistic expectations, a realistic approach, and a realistic time perspective. That's why I do what I do, because so many people start and quit because they're not getting the results they think they should, or on both ends, they think they should have more listens or they think they don't have any listens, and it puts you in a weird place. So yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is just share the awareness. If I have an awareness, you don't, awesome. If I can help you raise your awareness with mine, that's what we're all in this for at the end of the day.
And Kevin, going back to the 3 points that you mentioned earlier, and the listeners will probably not hear this from anyone else when they're being told, oh yeah, we'll help you get your podcast up and running and you'll be the next Joe Rogan and you'll have a gazillion downloads and the money's going to start pouring in. So to set expectations across the board, money, time, results, everything else, they're working with you, they're going to get something out there. When can they start seeing results? How long is that going to take? And dollar-wise, what would they be spending to start seeing a little bit of the needle starting to move?
Yeah. So this is what I say. It depends on the level of effort that you're willing to put in. If you're willing to post on social media every day and you're willing to build real, authentic relationships with your listeners, you're willing to turn your podcast into a business. The people who come and say, I want to get the most out of the least, that doesn't work with a podcast that well. So that's what I'll always say is, if you want to make money in the first year, sure, absolutely. That is definitely possible. If you want to make $1 million in the first year, barring some sort of specific niche that you're in, or you're marketing, you're connecting with high wealth individuals, that's probably not going to happen. So it all depends on the person, their capabilities, their niche, and their commitment. And then what I would say is the average cost of doing business with us is $500 a month. For me, it has to be sustainable, right? Because if it's not sustainable, you're not going to make $500 your first month, most likely. So I want to make sure it's sustainable long-term.
And for our listeners out there, if you were to do this yourself, just think of what it would cost. Forget the money. Let's look at the time. You got to put the team together. You got to find the experienced people. Make sure you're getting the right people, not the wrong people. I would suspect they're going to be spending way more time, and certainly they're not going to be able to do it for that small investment, Kevin, that you're talking about. And the ROI on that with the right amount of time and the effort is just tremendous.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into, like, there's the social proof of having a podcast too. I've had many clients that get speaking gigs because somebody goes and looks at their body of work. And Jeffrey, you're a great example. When you have hundreds of episodes, that's a really good suggestion of, oh, what would Jeffrey speak on? Oh, let me go listen to one of his solo episodes. Interesting. Great speaker, very authentic, can speak to our audience. Your resume gets better as you do more content, right? So, I have a resume of 1,250 something episodes. That's really good if somebody wants to listen, but you also can listen and say, all right, either this guy knows what he's talking about, or he's just BSing every episode. Do we feel comfortable bringing him in to speak to whoever it is? It builds up that brand trust. And I just think there's many intangibles that are just not measurable that a podcast really helps you with.
Absolutely. And for the people that are out there saying, yeah, you know what, Kevin, you've sold me on the podcast and even your team getting me out there on social media. But oh my goodness, speaking is just, I don't think I can talk, and getting up in front of people is a hard thing for me to do. What would you say to that person of why they could actually do it?
In the beginning, it's hard for everybody, right? I think the problem with many of us is we think where we are today is where we are forever. And we think where somebody is today is where they were forever. I couldn't speak in the beginning either. I'm still nervous when I give speeches, but there's some strategies and tactics. And I think the other thing too is I don't expect you to be good in the beginning. I am the type of coach that will jump on a call with you and I will literally help you format your episode. I'll help you figure out what to say, what not to say. I'll give you a framework so you feel more comfortable. That's what I would say. You'll have somebody in it with you that's going to help. You'll have somebody who's there to support you in the good moments, but also the challenging ones.
And Kevin, if you're looking for some rough episodes of just learning the ropes, just go to our podcast, the first few episodes. There you go. We're the poster child. So if we could do it, anyone could do it, because looking back and listening, it was, oh my goodness. No
same
business
here,
being
Jeffrey.
in business.
Yeah, same.
And so Kevin, let me ask you this, because really, if we roll everything together here now, what we've been talking about, whether it's through the podcasting and helping businesses get a presence and build a brand, or the Next Level University and the different courses that you're offering, for me, really, it's the art side of success. And when you look at your journey to date and the people that you've worked with, what do you think is going on? What have you been able to find and perhaps remove if it's been blocking someone from realizing their full potential?
I didn't realize this, Jeffrey, but a lot of people are afraid of success.
Oh, interesting. What's going on there?
I assumed everybody was afraid of failure like me.
Yeah.
There's a subconscious. So I had a client who we did a call, and she kept bringing this up, how she's always been torn down by people. She's beautiful, she's intelligent, she's wealthy, and she's very confident. And she literally on the call said, I'm sorry if that comes off as arrogant. I'm sorry if I seem too confident. I'm sorry. And I just asked a simple question. I said, why do you feel the need to say you're sorry? And she said, in most of the other rooms I've been in, I've been villainized for X, whatever it may be. And I said, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid of being successful and being torn down even more are you? And she said 10 out of 10. That's why I stopped myself from being successful. And it was just a very interesting thing. So I have seen that most of us, whether we don't believe in ourselves or we do believe in ourselves, we're usually the ones holding ourselves back when it comes to that inner stuff, right? If that person didn't realize that she was afraid of success, she would go her whole life chasing and trying to achieve what she actually doesn't want. What she's actually pushing away. So that's one of the big things I've seen is, a lot of people are afraid of failure, but a lot of people are also afraid of success subconsciously, and they don't realize it yet.
And Kevin, as you're talking through that, I'm thinking of our listeners, and you know what? We're all human. We all have, maybe it's a fear of failure, in this case, a fear of success. And I also know you do group coaching. And so for our listeners out there, if you're nodding your head, yeah, that kind of sounds like me, Kevin. You're talking about this person, but yeah, that could just as easily be me. Why not go to Kevin's website? We have that in the show notes. Sign up for the group coaching, have Kevin and the team help you get through that, work through some of those issues. Anything else, Kevin, that you're seeing? So fear of success, which, isn't so obvious. You wouldn't think of that necessarily. Anything else that you're seeing that's holding people back?
Yeah, their relationships. That's a big one. One of my favorite questions / least favorite questions, because I know it can be a little painful, but are the people in your life the best from your past or the best for your future? That is a question to sit with, because again, a lot of the people we have in our lives, if you classified why they're there, you'd say they've always been there. We went to high school, we went to college, we used to party together, we used to work out, we used to date, whatever it is. Just because somebody used to hold a spot in your life doesn't mean they should forever. Giving people the permission to admit that, it's a strange thing that we have a lot of shame around. We have a lot of shame around outgrowing people or quote unquote leaving people behind. That's one of the things that I've noticed about people is sometimes we want attention and we want people to hold space more than we actually want to be loved and appreciated.
That's interesting. What terrific insights. And Kevin, as you're talking about that, I was reminded, I believe it was Jim Rohn. I could be off base. I'm fairly certain that it was Jim Rohn who said, every one of us, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most amount of time with. And so for our listeners, who are you spending the most amount of time with? And if you were to go to some people that you trust, not those people that you're spending the time with, but people that know you, trust you and know those people, ask them, do they represent me? Are they a good representative? Could I be doing better? Could I be doing worse? And to your point, birds of a feather flock together, and that goes both ways. So yes, something to be really, really careful of. I'll just share with you, Kevin, some of the worst and biggest mistakes of my life have come from when I haven't been in the best of company. And we'll just leave it at that, but lessons learned and for our listeners as well.
Same.
And so, Kevin, we could just go down all these different rabbit holes, and I would love to. That said, we're starting to bump up against some time. So let's start to wrap things up. And I have the honor and the privilege of asking this question of every single guest. And I'll set this up and I'll ask the question. So, Kevin, if you look to the movie Back to the Future, you have that magical DeLorean car that will take you to any point in time. So, Kevin, here's the fun part. You look outside your window tomorrow morning, and there it is. Not only is the DeLorean car sitting there, but the door is open. It's waiting for you to hop on in. And now you're going to go back to any part of the younger Kevin. Kevin as a child, a teenager, young adult, whatever point in time that would be, Kevin. What are you telling your younger self in terms of life wisdom or lessons? Or, hey, Kevin, do this, but don't do that. What would that sound like?
Yeah, I think I would have maybe one for each kind of season of life. One would be, it's not your fault. I think I internalized my dad leaving for a long time as this was something of my doing, even though I had no influence or control over it. So that would be one. The other one, it's an interesting thing. In high school, nothing really matters as much as you think it does. You know, you think everything's the end of the world, and usually it isn't that. So I would have told him that. And then when I first began the entrepreneurial journey, I would have told him from day to day, progress is invisible. You cannot see it. It almost doesn't exist. But from year to year, progress is impossible to miss. I think that would have been something very valuable for me to know when I first started this journey.
Wow, a lot to think about. Some terrific advice. You're filled with wisdom, Kevin, but you're also vulnerable with yourself from how you started the interview all the way through, and you've been consistent that way.
Thank you.
And so for our listeners, Kevin, who want to reach out, perhaps they want the coaching or help with a podcast or Next Level University, where's the best place online that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, if you're interested in the podcast, just search Next Level University. All of our podcasts are on all the platforms. They're all up on YouTube as well if you want to watch us. And then if you're interested in anything, just ask questions. I'm not going to sell you on anything. Just shoot me an email, kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I'll respond to you. We can set up a free call to chat about whatever it is.
For our listeners, it does not get any better. The master of masters put his personal email address out there, so take him up on that. Ask him the questions. You'll learn a treasure trove. Well, Kevin, it's official. It's a wrap. A heartfelt thank you. Thank you for your insights, your vulnerability, your wisdom, and as we like to say here at Deep Wealth, please continue to thrive, prosper, and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, my friend.
The Deep Wealth experience was definitely a game changer for me.
This course is one of the best investments you will ever make, because you will get an ROI of 100 times that. Anybody who doesn't go through it will lose millions.
If you don't have time for this program, you'll never have time for a successful liquidity.
I mean, it was the best value of any business course I've ever taken. The money was very well spent.
Compared to when we first began, today I feel better prepared, but in some respects, maybe less prepared, not because of the course, but because the course brought to light so many things that I thought we were on top of that we need to fix.
I 100% believe there's never a great time for a business owner to allocate extra hours into his or her week or day. So it's an investment that will yield results today. I thought I will reap the benefit of this program in 3 to 5 years down the road. But as soon as I stepped forward into the program, my mind changed immediately.
There was so much value in the experience that the time I invested paid back so much for the energy that was expended.
The Deep Wealth experience compared to other programs is the top. What we learned is very practical. Sometimes you learn stuff that is great to learn, but you never use it. The stuff we learned from Deep Wealth experience, I believe is going to benefit us both.
I've done an executive MBA. I've worked for billion-dollar companies before. I've worked for smaller companies before I started my business. I've been running my business successfully now for getting close to a decade. We're on a growth trajectory. Reflecting back on the Deep Wealth, I knew less than 10% what I know now. Maybe close to 1% even.
Hands down, the best program in which I've ever participated. And we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've been in other mastermind groups, gone to many seminars, workshops, conferences, retreats, read books. This was so different. I haven't had an experience that's anything close to this in all the years that we've been at this. It's 5-star, A+.
I would highly recommend it to any super busy business owner out there. And Deep Wealth is an accurate name for it. This program leads to deeper wealth and happier wealth, not just deeper wealth. I don't think there's a dollar value that could be associated with such an experience and knowledge that could be applied today and forever.
Are you leaving millions on the table? Please visit www.deepwealth.com/success to learn more. If you're not on my email list, you'll want to be. Sign up at www.deepwealth.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, if it added value, if you walked away with some new insights and strategies, please leave a review on your favorite podcast channel. Reviews help us reach new listeners, grow the show, and continue to create content that you'll enjoy. And as we wrap up this episode, as always, please stay healthy and safe.